This is the Four Horsemen Podcast.
And welcome back, the Four Horsemen Podcast. It's your boy Nick with our neighbor to the north, Chase Claypool's childhood friend. They rode in the same limo drawn by a moose to prom, Dylan. And then we have Steve, the most pessimistic optimist that I know, hailing from Rhode Island, and we are ready to go. Joe will be joining us at some point during this podcast, I hope. And let's get to it. Huge win this week for Notre Dame over Stanford. Stanford was remarkably unremarkable. And Bryce Love is the most overrated running back in college football. I'll let you have the floor.
Yeah, no, that's it. We can stop the podcast now. There we go. That's all we got to do this week.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
So, but really, it's hard to be right all the time. And we saw Bryce Love be Bryce Love. And he had that one run that everyone's going to talk about because he's God's gift to football. But after that, he did nothing.
Oh my God. I don't think it was Flutie, or maybe it was Flutie. I know you have an ongoing vendetta against him, but one of the play-by-play, they were S-ing his D like this kid, the classroom, the community, the football field, he's everything, blah, blah, blah.
That was my turn.
Just going on and on about exactly like what you said, God's gift. And, hey, congrats on the 73 yards, buddy.
We should try to get a hashtag shut up Flutie going around Twitter, especially around Notre Dame Twitter, because that's apparently the Four Horsemen's Twitter head, and I love it. So let's get that.
One of the girls from 1 Foot Down, they used it, and they made a banner for it. So I said I'm going to use that because Flutie's the worst. And even with KJ Costello, the one thing that bothers me, and I edited this out of last week because we don't have to hear what bothers me. There's a lot of things. I'm Irish. I let a lot of things sit in my gut. But KJ Costello was a good quarterback. We're not going to sugarcoat it. He was a good quarterback. But every single week, Doug Flutie finds something to not talk about Notre Dame about. He consistently finds the opponent better. And people have to take notice. People have to see that he's doing this, right? I'm not crazy.
I think they tell him to. I think NBC tells him to be a complete asshole. Like, that seems to be – NBC wants to have no bias. That's what they want to do. So they're getting people to be, like, anti-Notre Dame on our show. And you notice that they hired a Michigan alumni. They hired USC people. They got Doug Flutie, who hates Notre Dame. Like, they want to go to their way – not to be criticized for being pro Notre Dame, but fuck that. It's Notre Dame's network. Be biased. Hire Brady Quinn. Let's get this going too.
Oh, hire Brady Quinn. I like that one. But let's not talk about the announcers. They're not why we're here. Notre Dame's run game, their defense, everything about the performance was phenomenal. 55 plays that they ran, or 55 rushes or something like that, and Stanford only ran 51 plays overall. That was just one of those boat races that it broke Stanford. They are literally a broken team right now.
Yeah, it was really looking like we should have been blowing them out in the game, and it was close. I don't know if you guys remember, it was kind of close going into the fourth quarter, despite us kind of outplaying them all game. So I think we got a fair result kind of breaking through. But, yeah, I mean, Stanford wasn't great. Notre Dame was. Any thoughts, Steve?
All right. So of the roughly 250 some odd yards that Stanford accumulated, the most astounding stat of the night, I think, is that Notre Dame held Stanford to just 31 net yards in the second half. 4 out of the 5 team sacks that they did have came in the second half. They only allowed 3 points, obviously just 1 field goal. Tavon Coney did come away with that interception. And then on the entire day, Stanford was just 3 out of 13 on third down. So they forced them, they shut down Bryce Love. They forced him to pass the ball, and, they forced sacks. They forced fumbles. Didn't recover any fumbles, but we were getting after the quarterback. A lot of hurries, a lot of pass breakups. I mean, this defensive unit was an absolute wagon, and I don't like. I almost was at a loss for words looking at that game. Thankfully, we had 48 hours for me to come up with some, because that was astonishing. And we we love to make the joke that this team is so 2012 it hurts. People forget up until the national championship that our defense in 2012 was incredible, and I think this one is even better. So, wow, what a friggin' game by that defense.
And just to go real quick off that point, you saw everyone flying around. Usually it was just Gilman, who should have had that interception. That was a terrible call by the Pac-12 refs. But everyone was flying around. They were making plays. They made it hard for Stanford's boring offense to work. And it's one of these analogies that I'm working on. Dylan, tell me if I'm crazy or not. Have you ever been driving down the highway just staring straight? And you're driving, you're going 70 miles an hour or kilometers, whatever you do over there, driving and driving and driving, and then your exit is a 90-degree turn right to the right of you. That's Stanford's offense. You're just watching them run 3 yards every time. And then it's like, oh, shit, something good's going to happen. I was so bored watching them on offense. If Notre Dame wasn't flying around and we had to watch them methodically run the ball down the field, it would have been a terrible, terrible game. But that's my analysis. That's my analogy for the night. Any other stats that really jumped out besides Bryce Love's 139-yard run? He did nothing of note for the whole night and then limped off with an ankle injury.
Yeah, I got a few things to kind of note. I think perhaps the most impressive stat that I saw was 29 first downs for Notre Dame to 10 for Stanford. That is really a testament to how good we were. And that links up with the next one, 53% third down conversion for Notre Dame compared to 23% for Stanford. So I thought that was impressive as well. And then total yardage, 550 for Notre Dame to 229 for Stanford. So just a dominant game all around, really. No matter how you look at it, it wasn't close. Notre Dame announced itself as a playoff team to the last game Saturday night. And I think we're a real threat, and I think the world knows that now because, wow, we just kicked the shit out of a top 10 team, and it wasn't close.
I agree. There's really nothing else to say about this performance. The one note that I have, and Steve, I don't know if you have any other stats, but in games where our coach can drink Gatorade out of the trophy at the end, we are 1-0 on the season. So
that's sabermetrics.
We cut that part out of the end of last week. Dylan and I had a conversation about the best rivalry trophy to drink out of, and it was between the megaphone and the Legends trophy. So Kelly proved our point that it is a drinkable trophy, which is Steve, do you have any last minute stats before we go into our four horsemen?
Yeah. Bryce Love, 17 attempts for 73 yards and a touchdown, 4.3 average. You take away his 39-yard touchdown run, 16 attempts, 34 yards. That's a 2.1 average. We bullied him into submission.
Now, do you think the injury was a real injury? Just to stay on the Love train real quick, or was it I'm getting beat? I'm gonna tap out early.
I don't know. It looked like his ankle was a little bit funky, but if he really wanted to stay in that game, he could have stayed in the game. I think people should know when they're defeated, especially nerds. So that's why Stanford just rolled over and let us pet their belly. So
he had to go study for a test or something.
Probably.
He knew he had to roll like a 12 on Dungeons and Dragons or some shit to keep going.
Yeah, and then another fun stat. So Ian Book, he obviously finished 278 through the air with 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Also finished with 72.7% passing, which thank God we're finally eclipsing the 50% mark, the all elusive 50% mark. Take that as you will, but. Do you guys know the last time a Notre Dame quarterback threw for 250 yards or more with 4 touchdowns or more and no interceptions?
Brady Quinn.
Jimmy Clausen.
The last person to do it was, in fact, Tommy Rees,
Oh,
Coach Rees.
Coach Reese.
He did it in 2013 against Air Force. He threw for 261 and so this is the first time in 5 years that a Notre Dame quarterback has eclipsed 250 with 4. So
it's not meant to be racist. We just went with the white quarterbacks. Right. That was not meant to be intentionally racist at all. But we went
against Texas. Against Texas, Deshaun Kaiser did throw for 5 touchdowns and no interceptions in that game we won at DKR. However, he only threw for, I think, 213 yards.
Oh, do better.
Yeah, so that's why 250 seems like a good mark to pass. So that's why it fell into Tommy Rees. But big shout out to obviously Deshaun Kaiser, one of my favorite all-time ND QBs, just not winning enough with us. But that's neither here nor there. On to the next one, as they say.
Yeah. So I think we've run our course with Stanford. Put it in the books.
I see what you did there.
4 horsemen. So through the match.
Before we got to the 4 horsemen, I did want to make note that on Dexter Williams' first carry of the year, it was a 45-yard touchdown, as we know. And that block was other than our left guard, you could say. And Alex Bars. Yep. He broke open the hole then, and there's also something else that he broke, and I believe his knee.
Yes, his ACL, MCL.
So he did.
Will you remember me? Don't let your life.
So that was an in memoriam for Alex Bars' ACL/MCL. He will be out for the rest of the season. I think he'll be. I think he was on track to be either a 2nd or 3rd round pick. Maybe this pushes him back to a 4th. But holy crap, what a talent, and all the best at the next level to Alex Bars.
100% agree.
2 things there. 1, we're gonna get sued for something.
That was under 30 seconds. It's like the happy birthday rule, so we're fine.
Oh, right. And 2, that's a good Canadian music over there, by the way. So that hit me in the homeland.
I knew that was coming.
Well, we can guarantee he is going to be a horseman of the year for us, coming out early like that. But really, 4 horsemen, we could do 1, 1, 1, 1, or just do all 4 at once. I think the 4 at once is a little bit easier to digest. So 4 horsemen for me, in no particular order. Dexter Williams, he's back. The juice is loose. He is going to run rampant over Virginia Tech and every other team for the rest of the season. Ian Book, nothing to say about Ian. He's phenomenal. He's a real leader out there. And Notre Dame released their team photo with Wimbush smiling like he'd never learned how to smile before, and Ian Book looking like a model. And we should have just given him the position then. Jerry Tillery, 4 sacks, probably the smartest guy on the field, even with Stanford being out there. And finally, Chris Fink. At the pep rally, he had a joke, and I'm going to tell it to you, Dylan. I already told Steve. Ready? Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Stanford.
Stanford who?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was it. So he tells dad jokes. He is phenomenal, and he's shifty. Really, he's going to be the next Patriot receiver, and we all know that. So much of the same from last week with Tillery and Dexter in there now. But that's all I got. I'm very happy with their performance. I could give it to anyone on the defense, but Jerry really stepped up in there.
I have to cheat a little bit for this one because I had some planned, and then one of our defensive players goes out and makes 4 sacks, and it ruins everything. But I have 2 honorable mentions this week because I really don't think you could go through the week without mentioning them. So technically my 6th horseman, my second honorable mention, Tavon Toney. Huge interception to kind of ice the game. He had 7 tackles, half tackle for loss, 5 solo tackles. I thought he was great. He improved from last week where he was a little inconsistent. And big timely interception. But the guy I was going to have in my top 4, and I was so proud of, but he got bumped out, is so my top honorable mentions, Chase Claypool. I thought he was fantastic. That's not just because I grew up with him in igloos, but he had great blocking and special teams, actually, is what I highlighted. There was at least 2 occasions where he had huge blocks for other running backs or wide receivers. Also, special teams play. He made 2 tackles, right? Huge game for him. 3 receptions, 23 yards, and a touchdown.
He's the most fundamentally sound blocker for the receiving core, I think. And that really helps, especially with the screens. He stays on his block, and I'll get my friend Brad to do a full breakdown of him, either through me paying Brad to do it or Brad doing it out of the goodness of his heart. So we'll find out about that.
He needs another year, I think, before he jumps, but definitely talent there. So my 4 horsemen, actually. 4th, I went Dexter Williams, 21 carries, 161 yards, 7.7 average with 1 touchdown, of course, which set the tone for the game. I thought he was fantastic. He didn't look like he missed a beat. It was really good to see him back, and 20 carries is right where we talked about last week, actually. I think it was Steve that mentioned it, that he wanted around 20 carries for Dexter Williams. So good stuff there. 3, Miles Boykin. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. How many times did we throw that little corner route to him, or that little curl?
Number 13 was being abused out there. It was like 15 throws.
Wasn't fair at all. He caught 11 receptions, which is a lot really for a receiver. 144 yards, 13 average, and he scored a touchdown at the end. Second, this is where it got tight for me, but I went Jerry Tillery, a.k.a. Terry Gillery. 6 tackles, 4 solos, 4 tackles for losses, and 4 sacks. I mean, a monster. He was defensive player of the week, I believe, this week.
Also forgetting a forced fumble on one of those sacks.
Exactly. Yeah, good call. He was fantastic. Just unbelievable week. He's a great player for us. You'll see him in the NFL playing the 3 tech. And lastly, my horseman, I thought about this hard, but it's got to be Ian Book. He was the guy that kind of drove us to the win. His numbers were very impressive, as Steve kind of highlighted a few of them there. But he went 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He had a high passer completion rating. I believe it was in the high 70s or mid 70s. 278 yards, but again, we were running the ball at the end of the game. And then the impressive thing is his adjusted QBR was 84, which is really high. I think that was he's top 20 in the country this week, and 183.5 passer rating. Like, just unbelievable stuff. He's been fantastic since being the quarterback. Nothing else to say. He helped us get a win. He's dynamic. He changed the offense. Dexter Williams too, but I really think it's Book's timely throws. He's making the right throws. He's running the ball when he needs to run the ball. He's not forcing anything. And that 1 pass over the 2 defenders, unbelievable.
So,
oh my God!
Real quick story. When I used to coach, I had a quarterback. I'll tell you off podcast about him a little bit more, but he was the same type of player Ian Book was, and I texted him during the game. I'm like, hey, watching 12 out there is like watching you play. And he goes, oh, he's a better passer. And I'm like, no shit. You played high school football. He plays for Notre Dame. But I meant, like, every time I was up in the booth, I would say, run the ball, make a decision, do something with it. And he would just wait that half a second more, and then he would out-athletic everyone on the field. And that you saw Ian Book doing the same thing. I'm yelling at my screen, throw to your outlet, run the ball. And he waited that half second, and instead of throwing to the outlet a 2-yard out, he would throw a slant across the middle for 15. So it's one of those things where he feels comfortable waiting, which is a line.
And there's one particular play where he was rolling, guys was crashing down on him, and I was like, throw it, and all of a sudden he just stayed calm, made his decision, hits Chris Fink for a huge first down at that point in the game. I guess it's time for me to get into my 4 horsemen.
That's right.
And something about Ian Book, who is one of my horsemen. I'll start with number 4, going in particular order. This is someone who I've wanted to call his name for a while now, just hadn't seen enough big plays or hadn't seen enough consistency. And I think he finally kind of broke out of the shell. So we have 2 magnificent linebackers, obviously, and Tavon Coney. I think those guys are both, top 2 round picks, possibly both first round picks. They're both incredible. But Asmar Bilal, 6 tackles, that one tackle for a loss was on the jet sweep, or not jet sweep. Sorry, it was a toss sweep to the left for Bryce Love, and Tavon took the inside, and you with not a shred of hesitation, he got outside, went right by him. The guy tried putting an arm on him, but it was an arm block. So obviously he just went right through it and really tracked down Love and wrapped him up in the backfield.
Yeah, I would agree. And he was one of your players to watch at the beginning of the season as well, right, Steve?
Number 3 star, obviously Ian Book. And people forget that Ian Book did add yards on the day. So, and he also took 2 knees at the end of give him, let's call it 51 rushing yards. He's more athletic than what people give him credit for, and he makes especially that touchdown Chase Claypool. That was across his body. He opened up his shoulders and gunned it in there past 2 defenders. So, number 2 horseman Williams, 21 carries, 161 and a touchdown. Welcome. And then number 1, undeniably, Jerry Tillery, as all the stats we mentioned before, 4 sacks, 2 quarterback hurries, a forced fumble, absolute monster. He was just devouring the offensive line. Honorable mentions, obviously, Miles Boykin, Jalen Edels in the pass defended. He almost had an interception, and I think the point of emphasis here is that he's really stepped up his positioning and put himself in a better spot to make impact plays. And then, of course, Julian Love, some love.
Our love is better than yours.
Yeah, right. So he did have 1 pass defended on the day, which brings him up to 39 for his career, which is a Notre Dame record. So he is now our all-time pass defender dude.
That's wild. And
which is an official title, by the way, pass defender dude.
Love it. It's the 4 Horsemen Hall of Fame. Moving forward, there's a lot of people talking online that Notre Dame doesn't deserve a playoff spot because Alabama, LSU, Clemson, Georgia, all of them are legitimate contenders. But usually this would be the point where we'd go through the schedule, but I have a bigger point to make, point of contention, if you will. Through 5 games, Alabama's played 5, Notre Dame has played 5. Alabama, if you take away the automatic losses that they've given opponents, their opponents are 12-7. Their remaining schedule as of right now is 19-14. For Notre Dame, their opponents are 16-4, with the remainder being 18-14. So when you really look at it, those four wins that Notre Dame opponents have over the Alabama ones are pretty significant in that regard. But the fact that the remaining schedule is equally the same is very interesting. People are going to say, oh, Alabama has to play LSU, Auburn, and Georgia in a 4-week span or something like that. Bama's good. I'm not saying they're not good. No one tape this and tell Saban I say they suck. But they're a little bit overrated. And I've been thinking about this for 3 days now. I'm fully confident in the fact that I'll say Alabama is an overrated team. Yeah, they have 2 quarterbacks who are both legitimate. They both proudly will play in the NFL. Yeah, their defense is scary as shit. But they are overrated. If you look at the teams that they played, if you take away Texas A&M, who may be the best team that they played, the other 5 teams that they played were Louisville, Arkansas State,
Powerhouse,
and Louisiana Lafayette.
Powerhouse.
Like, it's bullshit. They're playing these Sun Belt whack. They're not even legitimate schools that they're playing. And then you have Arkansas this week, Mizzou, and Tennessee. Ooh, Alabama, you're so scary. I know Notre Dame played Ball State. And they played Wake Forest and they played Vanderbilt. They play the friggin' Citadel November 17th. The Citadel. It's frustrating because I'm getting worked up right now. These individuals online from certain websites that we all read will glorify Alabama and say that they're the best thing since sliced bread, that no one will ever be able to beat them. But the teams that they're playing, Louisville, 2-3. Arkansas State, 3-2. They're in the Sun Belt. Ole Miss, 3-2. Texas A&M, 2-2. Louisiana Lafayette, 1-3. And Arkansas, just for this week, 1-4. They're not playing teams with winning records. They're not beating teams that are ranked. When the only ranked team that they beat, correct me if I'm wrong, was Texas A&M. So it's just ridiculous that everyone is saying, "Oh, Tua's so good," and blah 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 blah. Yeah, they're putting up high numbers of points, but these are against defenses that I could play against and put up at least one touchdown on. So I'm frustrated more than anything because of the SEC's cupcake schedule.
Yeah, I think you make a fair point about them not playing tough competition yet, but it's the manner in which they're beating these teams that's getting all this hype. And here's the thing: I would have agreed with you last year saying they were overrated because they did have a weakness on offense, and I don't think they were the best team in the country last year. But Tua is so good. I don't know if we can say that this year. We'll see when they play a good team, but anytime I watch Alabama, it's scary. Like, I know they're not playing good teams, like you've said, but Texas A&M's a decent team.
Yeah.
They put Clemson within 2 points. I don't think they're as good as Michigan or Stanford, like we've played, but that's still a good team they clobbered. And we're going to see them play LSU and Georgia at some point, and Auburn. We'll see how good Alabama is. I just hold off on calling them overrated because we haven't really seen them tested yet.
I'll put my stamp on it right now, Dylan. They're overrated. Definitively, they are overrated because they haven't won through September. They're through 5 games. They haven't played anyone. 2, if you look legitimately, and I've said this before, the fact that November 17th, when the majority of college football schedules legitimate games against legitimate opponents, they're playing the Citadel, which they're going to put 70 up on. Their third string's going to be in before halftime, and then they get to rest up for Auburn. I'm not mad at a scheduling adjustment like that, but play at Division I. Play at FBS school. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. Point across.
Yeah, I know their schedule's a joke, but they are a freaking wagon. So as much as I'd love to hate the team and say that they're overrated, until they can actually lose with any modicum of consistency, I can't give that stamp of approval as much as I would like to, as much as I'd like to see Nick Saban. I'm not going to say bad things here. I'm just going to say, Nick Saban, please just don't be around Tuscaloosa anymore. And anyone can leave up to their imagination what I mean by that. But now we're looking forward.
We are moving
Blacksburg,
forward.
Virginia.
The bitterness there. VaTech, we are ready to go. They're coming off a huge win against Duke, 31-14. Really, I know there's maybe some opinions about if they really need what happened in the Old Dominion game, because I don't know. But they're a good team. I have some thoughts on the preview, but I'll leave it up to you two first. Thoughts, Dylan?
It's a scary environment regardless of how good Virginia Tech is. We don't know how good Virginia Tech is because we don't know if that was a fluke loss. We also don't know how good Duke is. The Florida State win looks a little exposed, so we don't really know what Virginia Tech is, but we know there is no quarterback. We know that they're not as good as Notre Dame, I think the question really comes down to, is Notre Dame going to show up on the road under the lights, and that's tough for any opponent team to do, into a tough environment, Enter Sandman's going to be playing. Can they win that game? That seems to be, in recent Kelly years, where we've lost, has been the October, November ACC road game. Florida State, Clemson, Miami. 2 of those games were close. And I'd like to see us get over the hump this year. I know Virginia Tech is by far the weakest of those 3 teams I've mentioned, 4 including them. But we should take it to them. If we keep up our defense, which has been saving us all year, if we keep running the ball with Williams and throwing it effectively with Book, there's no reason we can't do what we did to Stanford on a bigger level.
Here's a fun fact for everyone about the game. The current quarterback for Virginia Tech, Ryan Willis, was recruited to the University of Kansas by former Notre Dame quarterback Ron Pallis, who was the Jayhawks quarterback coach under Charlie Weis, which we all know Charlie Weis was a Notre Dame coach. Other than that, and they try to make all these connections for the game, that's it. I mean, Notre Dame, they played before that one other game that they played in 2016. Justin Fuente owns 4 victories against ranked opponents. And Frank Beamer is getting a statue made of him that night. So this is one of those trap games that you can worry about. You tend to think, oh, I'll be worried because Beamer's going to be there. Beamer ball is going to be in effect. But it should be interesting. And Enter Sandman's, is that the song that they play when they enter, or just the whole game?
When they enter, yeah.
That's obnoxious. Steve?
They don't have a quarterback. I mean, it's hard to imagine we lose this game. It is certainly possible. After all the losses that I've seen with such talented teams that we've had over the years. So obviously, me, dark and stormy, I'm not going to get particularly excited or have high expectations. Let's just say right now, I think it's going to be a close one because we are on the road. But Ian Book, people forget this was his first ever home win. So he's played on the road / bowl games. The bowl game in particular being the quote unquote spotlight or the lights shining bright so he can perform under the pressure. It's just going to be a little bit different of an atmosphere for him. So yeah, I think it's going to be somewhat close because they're Beamer ball, even though Beamer's not there anymore, they're still a pesky team. But all things considered, our defense, if they can play a shred with a shred of the tenacity that they did this past Saturday night, if they can repeat that performance, I just don't see how a team that's on their backup quarterback can even remotely compete with us. But cautiously optimistic.
Oh, using my
that's all I got.
All right.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what I got for now. With that being said,
real quick, you're kind of
go Irish.
Go Irish, but you're our running back whisperer. Hope you didn't leave yet. With Williams being there, Jafar being out till after the bye week, and Tony Jones being questionable for the game, they're going to have to do tryouts this week. And you have Avery Davis who can play running back, of course, but you also have Sebo Flemster. Do you have any thoughts on
Engineer Smith?
Do you have any thoughts on what the running back tandem will look like?
Obviously, you got to believe that Dexter's going to get 20 carries. Now the question is, can Tony get 15 carries? I think if Tony gets 15 on top of 20 from Dex, then that means that we're controlling the clock. We're controlling the line of scrimmage. The offensive line is really doing its job. Very curious to see who's going to fill in for RIP Alex Bars. It's going to be Trevor Ruland most likely, right?
Trevor Ruland's right now. The depth chart hasn't come out. It's Monday, so we'll.
Yeah, that's who it's most likely is. I mean, luckily we have depth at the position, but there's a difference between a guy that might be 2 years away from the NFL and a guy who it was projected to be a pretty freaking good pick on the offensive line, filling in for Quentin Nelson, who was possibly the best offensive lineman of all time. So,
I don't
yeah,
think
it's good that we have depth. I mean, I'm high on Dexter, obviously. I think Tony Jones definitely still has a role with the team, and I think that he can really make an impact. I think if he gets 15 carries, that means we're pretty much guaranteed to win. I think if he gets 10 carries, that means we're still doing a good enough job of mixing up the pace of the game. But yeah, after those two guys, you can mix and match Jameer Smith and Saborius Fleminster. I think both of those guys have bright futures. They need some time to develop though. But yeah, I mean, exciting stuff all around, and hopefully, we can get the ball rolling.
And Dylan?
Yeah, well, sorry, Steve. I mistimed my jump. I was going to say, when you said Quentin Nelson might be the best offensive lineman ever, I was going to say, and that's not an overstatement. So apologies there for listeners at home. I think we're going to have our way with them. I do. Now, of course, we're going to lose the game because I've said that. But I, as long as you can kind of kill the crowd early, which we tend to do, we tend to score early in ball games. I think you can control it from there. And as we've seen with the Stanford game, we can go into the fourth quarter basically tied and still blow a team out. So we stick to our guns. We stick to what we do best. And I think it's going to go well. I can't speak to how many carries each guy should do, but I think Buck is going to have a really good time today or Saturday.
I agree, and I'm sure he's having a good time all week. Being the starting quarterback in Notre Dame must be a fun place to be.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to be it my whole life. I mean, everyone does. Every kid growing up a Notre Dame fan wants to be somewhat involved with Notre Dame.
And Joe, unfortunately, is stuck grading papers tonight, but he gave me a prediction. He is saying 30-21 Notre Dame. It'll be a 2-score win, but Virginia Tech will keep it somewhat close throughout. Kind of like the Stanford game, except we don't pull away as much at the end, but enough to win by 2 scores, reflecting what you said as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a decent take. I have my own prediction. I don't know when we're giving our own scores, but I got something lined up that I think.
All right. I have one as well, but
because we were close last week, you and me. We were pretty much neck and neck until the end.
And they could have scored again at the end too, make it a close to 50 or over 50. My prediction, I think Notre Dame's going to be able to do very well defensively. I'm not really outstanding by anything that Virginia Tech does. I don't like the stadium that they play in. I think the coach is a little bit of kind of rookie-ish in the sense that he balls up when stress and pressure gets him. So that being said, I'm going to go out on a limb here. 42-17 Notre Dame.
Ooh, we're close again, buddy. We think alike because we're smart. But joking there. But
I'm not joking. We're intelligent.
Yeah. Something I've noticed is that our defense is fantastic. I've been saying this since before the Michigan game. We are stout across the board. But one area in which we've kind of not statistically performed up to is scoring defense. We've had tendencies to, despite being an elite defense, we're giving up 17 points around there, sometimes more. And that's not bad by any means, but I don't think it's actually reflective to how good we are. And I think with a backup quarterback, our defense is going to click on all cylinders. And I think we're really going to see a suffocating defense. So I'm going to say Notre Dame 37, Virginia Tech 13 with like a touchdown in garbage time. I think this is going to be a blowout. I think the Irish are going to put it to bed, and you can book our playoff spot.
Ooh, book. We really got to work on our book puns. I only have the one of Melissa McCarthy throwing a book at someone, so we'll have to work on that this week. And bonus prediction, this will be out before the Saturday fight. You're a big McGregor fan, and one of the mixed martial arts the mixed martial arts, we'll cut that part out. I'll probably keep it in, though. McGregor, Khabib, Nurmagomedov. I can say that, but I can't say Persuasion. Anyway, Khabib, McGregor. I have my own thoughts. I don't know a lot about MMA, UFC. I'm a gut guy. I'm not a numbers guy. I'm saying McGregor knocks him out in the 4th round. Left hand to the chin.
Fuck that Russian bitch. What I think. Connor's gonna KO him in 1.
In 1.
Bet on that one. Here's the thing. This guy walks with his chin straight out. He walks forward. He's got no defense, and Connor's got the deadliest left hand in combat history. I think it's going to be like the Eddie Alvarez fight. The first punch that Connor lands is going to stun him. It's going to freeze him. He's not going to know what to do. His game plan is going to go out the window. He'll be stiff. And Connor, I think, will put him away in round 1.
You heard it here first. Connor in round 1. Irish win. Other than that, we're in for a hell of a week. Be sure to subscribe, like us on iTunes, 5-star review. You can also follow us on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, pretty much anywhere. If we're working on getting smoke signals up, if you just want to listen via Fire and Flame. Other than that, all I got is a Hokie is a dumb mascot. Go Irish, beat VaTech.